It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Hey, today I want to do part 2 of my leasing video. And folks, let's just jump on the Sharp Interactive board. I got kind of a cool thing to show you here today. But, you know, last week when I showed the players in the middle there, I had Xerox Financial Services. Well, Xerox Financial Services changed their name to FITTLE. Folks, this is exciting. You know, when I look at Xerox and they're really trying to get past this printed page, they split the company up into different separate companies. The financial services became its own company. Now it's called FITTLE. And, you know, they're going to go into the marketplace and do creative things. So it'll be very interesting to watch how they progress into the marketplace. You know, last year we saw them align themselves with Lexmark to provide the financing for Lexmark's, you know, rental business, if you will, or the direct business from Lexmark. And we're going to see them partner with more OEMs, folks. OEMs are going to deliver products to end users without the resellers in the middle. You all do realize this. And they're going to do this more and more. And the way they're going to do that is by aligning with financial institutions so they can get the money from these financial institutions so their customers can buy equipment creatively. As we move into subscription models and software as a service and all these things that we're doing into the marketplace, it's going to be how those OEMs and how those dealers get creative in how they deliver. And that creativity is a big part of that creativity comes from how they finance the equipment in the marketplace. So it'll be very interesting to see what FITTLE does in the marketplace. But folks, you know, when I did the video last week, you know, part 1 of this, I was talking about how some of these folks were out there, you know, funding dealers on leases where the equipment wasn't delivered and there was no ETA for the delivery and how dangerous that was. And I was kind of talking through that a little bit in that first episode. And, you know, someone left a comment, they were trying to congratulate, you know, U.S. Bank, who's the one that had the where is clause in their thing, but, you know, on how this was an innovation. Folks, this isn't innovation. We have to decide what's innovation and what's desperation. When we start doing things that are out of the scope of logic, that's desperation, okay? That's not innovation. And I realize, and I'm hoping that all my friends in the space are realizing that the leasing companies are under the pressure themselves. It's not just about OEMs need to consolidate. These leasing companies, we're not going to be able to have all these, you know, players all over the place competing with each other, doing the same thing everybody does. And now, you know, we know that we have our friends over there at Great America that pride themselves on doing all this other stuff to help dealers. And folks, you know, that stuff might have been good 10, 15 years ago, but they themselves are going to have their own issues because dealers are just going to need the money. And when mega dealers and OEMs and all these folks go into the marketplace through creativity and financing, they're just going to need the money from financial institutions. They're not going to need all these other services. This is going to change the game. Technology resellers that are dealing with our friends over at TD SYNNEX as an example, they're going to get finance options from TD SYNNEX, and TD SYNNEX is probably going to get the money from Wells Fargo or DLL, maybe even FITTLE. And so we're going to see some major changes in how we go to market with equipment and software and solutions and services through the financing piece. And dealers today need to be shopping. They need to be shopping. They need to be talking to these financing organizations and figuring out where they can get the money the cheapest from. And then they need to evaluate what is this leasing company's rates all about. Are they about other services a leasing company participates in? I've been pretty critical of master service providers lately. We know that Great America owns Collaborants, and I still question today whether the leasing business is paying for the business for Collaborants. Collaborants recently published an article in ENX magazine talking about how they had 44 employees. Folks, after 12 years, 44 employees for a master service provider doesn't appear to be very big to me. And so the question still remains, is Great America Leasing paying the bills for Collaborants? And if they are, what happens when Great America continues to get pressure and pressure and pressure? What happens? Do they spin off Collaborants? Does Great America go out and buy other smaller leasing companies? What happens? Because the smaller leasing companies are going to have a real challenge in the space. You know, 20 years ago, you didn't have OEMs financing directly to end users, okay? Over the next 20 years, that's what you're going to have. 20 years ago, you had dealers that just sold print equipment. And for the most part, they overspec'd A3 and sold A3, and they created a lot of dollar volume in leasing to end users. Those days are coming to an end. We all know this. So if these leasing companies, if 75 or 80% of their portfolio has been overspeccing and overselling A3 equipment, how is that going to affect them? Do they have the wherewithal to move into other services? This will be a challenge for FITTLE itself, the Xerox financial arm. I mean, let's be honest, they were a print finance business, right? So how are they going to transition from the print-centric finance business to an SMB finance company? Because that's really where they're going. I think the first step is spinning that thing off, changing the name. These are all good signs that they understand that they got to change and they got to move in a different direction. And, you know, $3 billion in assets, they're a pretty big player. They have the resources to be creative with this. Be very interesting to see where they go with that. But folks, you know, you got Wells Fargo, DLL, and FITTLE, probably the only ones on the board with $3 billion or more in assets just in the print space. So will they be the players that prevail out of this? Will they be the players that help change the game for the industry? I'm hoping somebody changes it. Like I said, I got excited when we saw our friends at Amura kind of jump into space, small leasing company, and I questioned, what the hell are they doing here? You know, you came to the race and the race is about over with. You can't just jump in line when the race is about over with. And so it'll be interesting what they're going to do. But right now, when I watch them in the marketplace, it seems like they're just trying to ride the coattails of our friends over at Great America, for instance. And so I don't know how that's going to change the space. Because, folks, it's simple. We're going to see a massive increase in in-house financing. This is going to happen. Mega dealers are going to do it. Medium-sized dealers are going to do it. They're going to realize they can capture some revenues and profits from financing equipment to the end users. And they also realize that in order for them to change the game and be the differentiator in their marketplace, they're going to have to be creative in how they deliver products to the end user. That creativity is going to be born from how they finance products and services and supplies and solutions and all this stuff. How do they do it? What's their secret? What's their secret sauce? Folks, it's going to be around financing. And it's not going to be around the financing the way it was 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. It's quite honestly, it's a little bit disturbing that we haven't seen some of these major players get in the space and really start changing things. We still see them trying to appease dealers and trying to, you know, stay in the status quo landscape. Folks, if your business was in the print sector, there was like 1,000, 1,500 people you could chase business from. As we start financing technology services, it's a huge population of resellers, of end users, of distribution houses. It changes the game drastically. So I challenge my leasing company friends. I challenge you. It's time to really shake things up. It's time to come to the market and give dealers some creativity around financing so they can have a differentiator in the marketplace. And remember, be careful how you go to market, because at the end of the day, the only thing the dealers really need from you finance companies is your money. Yeah, they'll rely on some of your management skills to manage the accounts if they want to use you as for the money and let you manage their portfolios. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be pressured around the money. The dealers can get more creative the less the money costs them. And they'll win through the creativity. Some things to think about, my friends, because we all know this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.